My name is Cardenas, born and raised San Jose, California. My little motto is artista humilde pero chingona. I'm going to try that again. Artista humilde pero chingona. So that means humble and badass.
It all began at a small art walk here in San Jose, California. I was out in downtown in the Sofa district when my girlfriend pointed out a booth that Audrey was running. Instantly, I was captivated by the strong emotional feeling I had from her compositions. Leaving with a few stickers, it was later that night that I thought to myself, I should have bought a print. It started there, but it truly begins here with our conversation. From first introductions to the end, the topic sunk with depth, and eventually I would find myself immersed in her words. I too have learned so much, and the icebreaker started with, when did you get into painting? This is The Odyssey, into the mind of an amazing artist. Local Love, Episode 2.
So growing up, we never really had, too much money to buy art supplies, and coming from a family that, to be honest, I didn't learn until later in life that my mom didn't grow up with crayons. We could talk about that, but just really art wasn't something that was really big in my family. So when I got to get to high school, it was a requirement to just, play with different mediums, and I fell in love with painting. I used to be the first one done and do my friends' assignments so they could pass too.
When speaking of artistry, I believe it is important to understand the medium as well as the earliest inspirations. Those who have given that initial push to a movement which till this day has not halted.
I think my main style, I always loved doing portraits, but acrylic was for sure my comfort zone. When I hit, I think it was junior year, my teacher introduced me to watercolor. Mm-hmm. I fucking hated it. I was like, this is too hard. You can't control it. At least like with acrylic, if I mess up, I could paint it over. Right. And I'll never forget. And I was like, I don't want to play with this. And she told me, whenever you try something, don't just try it once. Give it another try. You're gonna be in a different mindset. And she went home, she got me her legit expensive cold press paper, she gave me her paints and was like, try it again. And I actually have the portrait that I painted when I was 16 years old. And from there, I like it's mind blowing, right? Because a lot of my pieces that people love right now, they're mainly watercolor. And so if it wasn't for my mentor, Miss Lifeham, I wouldn't have been painting with watercolor. So I feel super blessed that she was in my path.
I asked her if she stayed connected with her teacher and how that experience was.
Oh yeah, definitely. I went about over 10 years without seeing her, and I recently got connected with her at James Lake High School. She was a teacher there, and we were presenting a mural, and I hadn't seen her, and so I had the opportunity to thank her for never letting me give up on something that, tried it once. And so that was a big lesson. And it was for sure a moment where I think like when we're youth, we kind of go through life sometimes a little mindlessly because we're trying to figure out who we are, and we don't say thank you enough. So I just needed to make sure that I caught up with her, and I shared my thank yous and my appreciation for her just caring so much about the young people.
Women are beautiful. Let's just start there. And as I traveled through her art space, the questions of each piece came up. What is the overall motivation? And the curiosity of, who is that? My first question was, what woman came to mind that influenced her the most?
I think my mom, for sure. I think there's a lot of strength that the women head of our households just make things happen for us. And I think it takes us way too long to really recognize and appreciate everything they do for us. And I think to truly understand them, we have to be in their shoes. And there's no way we could do that, right? So we have to pay homage and respect.
A symbol of warmth, touch, rarity, and nurture. From the beginning of our lives, it's a privilege to have someone who touches your heart with a blessing that connects two souls. An everlasting love which Areli found in her mother. The story of Madre Luna.
For me, my mom's hands were my comfort zone. Ever since I was little, my mom was always about, Mom, rub my back, or run your fingers through my hair. And I think as little kids, men, little girls, little boys, that's something that our mom's touch was something, those of us that have been fortunate enough to have a mother figure. And I wanted to just show her how beautiful she is, like in my eyes. And, you know, sometimes as up and up as we can be, we also hit our lows. And something my mom would tell me is, acuérdate que siempre tienes madre. And she would tell me, remember, like, you always have a mom. And, like, so long that you have your mom's love, like, you're rich. You're good. And so, you know, when I did my painting of Madre Luna...
which one's that?
And that's the one right there.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right.
My mom always had, we call them alcatraces in Spanish, but she always had calla lilies in her garden, and she always tends to her garden. And I just think, you know, it takes skill in itself to be able to keep plants alive. Yeah. And so I think it's like the representation of the calla lilies in her arms, you know, her muscles going into the stems. It was how much nurturing she's put into me and my brother, you know, and even our friends and our cousins, whoever met her, she was just very nurturing and loving. And with the heart, you know, a heart is so delicate and gentle. That's why I made it like a ruby quartz heart. Mm-hmm. And then when the Luna, it's a moon, but I want to do a little bit of a rare moon. It's like the rarity. How often do we see a rare moon? And a moon touches. It touches a lot of land. And I think that's like the depths that my mom's love like courses through my veins. And I know my brother loves her dearly as well. We're just so fortunate to have her in our life.
Even still in today's society, we are fighting for the equality of women all around the globe. The representation in these works, I believe, embody her fight for revolution, influenced by her background and the stories she wishes to tell.
I worked a lot in along social justice or just justice in general, right? Among really strong women. And I think sometimes some of my peers, they're really out here in the community in the Bay Area or across the nation, really doing some badass work for their communities. And I think that's inspiring. And exactly how we talked about, sometimes when women get recognized or highlighted, it's so short-lived. And I felt like by capturing some of my peers or even like a portrait or whatnot, that's gonna live on forever, because I want to commemorate them and I want to replicate their image. So when people ask me about a painting, I have a story about who that woman is. And she may be someone I know, or she may be you. And so if you find yourself in that painting, I think that's powerful as fuck.
When talking about self-exploration, there's emotion and how we deal with it. What is strength?
And I think loving yourself, right? Because I think when ultimately, this is how I feel, talking to people, when they think about strength, they think about suppressing emotion, but I think there's power in owning your emotion. I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to openly just let yourself have that, you know?
Right.
And heal from it, like truly heal from it and not suppress it. I think that's so important. So my dad's from Michoacan, little place called Dos Aguas. You probably can't even find it on a map, and if you can, it's tiny. My mom is from San Nicolas, Durango. So they're both from two different states in Mexico. And they actually both immigrated here when they were 16 years old. So their highest level education is like elementary school. And they both came to this country and they both worked in factories, fruit packaging factories. And that's actually how they met. They met in an orange fruit packaging factory here in San Jose back in the day. And so met here, fell in love, got married, and raised my brother and I here.
Understanding her roots established our discussion on the cultural effect of her art and where she found those elements. I saw influence of Aztec culture, Mexican heritage, and the city of San Jose.
Oh, you got it all. See, perfect. So I think a lot of, I've seen, like, I love danzas, right? I love people that embrace the Aztec culture, that are embracing pieces that if people didn't cultivate that, we wouldn't know, right? For the community across. But it was exactly that, right? Her title is Mexica Tiahui, and she is, everyone calls her the little San Jose native. First of all, you'll never see a shark headdress, so I made one. And I think for her, she's just rooted. The look in her eyes is my favorite part. It's just so she's not scared. She's not completely happy. She's just kind of looking beyond and just trying to get somewhere, you know? And I took little elements of the Aztec calendar, hid it in the headdress. And she actually is not one particular individual. I had different women, like peers close to me, and some women off of social media send me profile pictures. And so I took different elements from different women, features, and I created her. And that's where I said some of these portraits, I may know them, or if you see yourself in them, that's because this piece is for you.
The process. We dove into her work style to see how she develops her compositions through technique and emotions.
So my thing with my pieces is that what I start off as the idea is not what you get as a final result, right? So when I do paint, for the most part, I do a rough sketch on my canvas, and then I kind of add as I go. To be honest, I like to bounce around my piece, so it just depends what color I want to work with. Sometimes if I just want to lay down a black, I might just lay it down quickly. But I always, for the most part, when doing acrylic, you always want to lay down the background color, because then you could just paint your image over it, right? But with watercolor, you can't really like lay down the background, because you need to leave enough space for the piece, right? So it's a little bit of the opposite. And then from there, like I said, depending on my mood, if you notice, I love vibrant pieces because I don't like to sit too much in painting with black. So if I need a little pick-me-up, that's when I'm gonna pick up my color. If I could really zone in and hyper focus, that's when I love to go into the detail with like even hair strands or such things, right? Fingernails, wrinkles in like the knuckle. It just depends on my mood. And as I'm painting, my ideas of what I'm creating change, and I'll start adding to it. And so when I first tell you what my idea is, then I see an image, or I get inspired, or I have a conversation with someone and I start adding on different elements. So I never really know what I'm gonna create for the end result. Some of these times, like, I wasn't happy in moments of painting certain things, right? But like, my favorite thing is where I get to zone out. That's my healing. Like, I think it's important for me to heal through my paintings and being able to leave it right there. Like, leave it right there on the canvas and like create something beautiful. But I'm always happy to share with people. I always pull out different stories from each piece. I always know, like, what was I feeling during that. That's why I said if people really knew what I was going through in that moment, like, it would surprise you, because a lot of my pieces do emulate strength, right? And so I said vulnerability, I think, is the highest form of strength. Being able to be so in tune with your emotions, to be able to project that and then share it with people, I think that's magnificent. And enough people don't talk about it, you know, especially during times like these, where a lot of people are, you know, going through a lot of, you know, mental health challenges or struggles, or they find themselves alone.
Right.
I mean, no matter what happens, no matter how alone I am, I'm always gonna have my art. My paintbrushes will always be waiting for me, even when I abandon them. They'll always be there for me, and I appreciate that. Really feel fortunate to be able to have something that I love so much, like painting.
My Lola always told me to never forget where you came from. And that quote can be interpreted in so many different ways. When we talk about where you're from, I think about community, a group not solely bound by state lines or cities. In today's world, it's so critical that we truly love our community and appreciate what it has given us and what it plans to give us in the future. I hope we can all continue to fight for our rights, and most importantly, our equality and freedom. Being born in San Jose but later moving to Sacramento, I am fascinated to hear stories of different phases of the city. With Adeli's perspective extremely intriguing on what she loves the most about her city.
I love being from San Jose. I love being a little hood. I think growing up from here, you know, a lot of people, you know, do move here, and I appreciate them kind of just taking us in and loving who we are. But man, if I could go back and just live in San Jose over 10 years ago, it was a different feeling.
Yeah.
You know the feeling, you know, one of my favorite feelings I had recently this year was cruising down Santa Clara Street and seeing people for Cinco de Mayo weekend It felt like my childhood. It felt like the community really came and showed out because we just wanted to connect so much, you know? And there was no problems. Like everything just kind of dwindled away, especially seeing sometimes how there's a lot of animosity among certain Latino communities. And, you know, there's a lot of diversity in our Latino culture. And I definitely feel like we could be more united. But it was so beautiful to see that for Cinco de Mayo. People were just smiling, children were like, you know, witnessing something I grew up with, and the city had shut it down so many years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was just really dope to be able to be a part of that and cruise down the streets with motorcycles, our flags. Like it was amazing. That's the San Jose I grew up to love, that weekend right there.
As an artist, is it critical for your career to venture outside your city, your comfort zone? I know for me, coming back to San Jose 17 years later introduced me to a self I've never imagined.
I feel like I love San Jose, and I love that San Jose loves me back, but I feel like there's more of me like nationwide and beyond. I feel like there's so much, like, I don't want to completely limit, although the majority of my artwork is like Latino, Mexican inspired. There's just so much, like, I appreciate people for having empathy and wanting to know the stories, because it hasn't just been, you know, the San Jose demographic. You know, I have a lot of people in New Mexico particularly. I used to go back and forth between out there, and that's what inspired my art too, because if I would have never left, you would have never gotten Zia Mia, my self-portrait. That's a picture that I took on top of the volcanoes in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Which one, this one?
Yeah, the yellow one. That's Zia Mia, that's my self-portrait. And that was me traveling back and forth to New Mexico, really exploring and learning the culture. And that's where I kind of like snap, and I'm like, whoa, like, hold on. You know, there's a lot of Native American cultures, tribes, beautiful traditions. And the things that separated them in Mexico was the border. And so it got me thinking, I was like, we're more connected than we know, right? We're more connected to a lot of cultures. And I just feel like for me, traveling and taking this worldwide, like, it's going to influence my mind to create more dope shit. And so I don't just want to be here. I want to be everywhere, so I could bring and gift everybody with beautiful pieces in their homes.
And speaking of creative advancements, I asked what plans for herself and her art can she see in the near future.
Yeah, I feel so we're going in right for the most part. The thing with me is that I take a lot of time on my pieces, super detailed, and I want to start exploring a little more digital art. I think we talked about it earlier, just being able to create now merchandise, I'm trying to just hustle as much as I can so I could put back into my craft. Anytime I make $1 off this, I don't spend it. My money that I make off my art is going back into my business. And so I'm trying to build, right? And so if I'm able to build merchandise, let's do it. I've been talking to my homies. I love the graffiti community. Talking to my homegirl Lou, and I told her, teach me. Like, let's do this. Like, I could get down, do murals, but teach me what you know. Like, I'm ready to expand. Like, there's no limit. It's never too late to learn, right? And so, like, imagine one of these blown up in a mural. Just like the sultry look or the power that some of these pieces hold.
Yeah, I could fucking see it.
It'd be fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I want to be able to do that. And I'm always like, my community, like my tribe, my people, if I'm eating, you're eating. If you're right here with me and like cheering me on, we're hustling when we're putting each other on, I'm always gonna like lift when I climb. Hands down. That's always been me. I'm always gonna lift. Never gonna be envious of people's successes, especially people in my community, you know?
What do you mean about that exactly? You said you like to lift when you climb?
So it goes back to like, I'm badass, but stay humble, right? I feel like it would be easy for me to just solely take myself somewhere when I become successful, as I become successful. And if I know that I have peers, or if I am connected to people that I believe in as well, I'm going to take them with me. I want to put them on too, you know? Because really, whatever you put out in the universe, you're going to get it back tenfold. And it feels good to wake up and know, hey, I got a solid tribe behind me. We're cheering each other on. We're putting each other on. Like when I'm climbing this like ladder of life, I'm putting my hand down so you could be by me. it feels nice to wake up every day knowing, I don't have bad blood with people, that I'm putting out good energy and investing into others. That feeds me too, That's my homegirl Desiree. So Desiree's out here in our Bay Area, San Jose streets, helping women of our community, predominantly focusing on reform,
Yeah.
We know there's a big discretion between the ethnicity of people incarcerated and people suppressed. And so she's a badass Chicana. And one day she photographed herself and I told her, I wanna paint you. Like, she was my second painting and print that I sold after Frida. And I think it was my moment of like, we idolize famous people, but sometimes we have people right in our backyard sitting right next to you at the desk that are inspirational as fuck. And what I did a little play, with our sarape, even like with her mouth covered, she's so fucking loud. And so it doesn't matter, right? We're making moves even if we move silently. We know when we sit around the table to bring change, we're at a disadvantage because the color of our skin or because where our parents came from, right? We got to work a little harder because no one's handing it to us. We just need to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so when I ended up doing the halo, there's a big Christian Catholic influence over Latinos, and not just Latinos, right? Wherever the conquistadores hit, whatever islands they hit, whatever countries they hit. But I want it, and I embrace that, right? I love God. God, brings me my blessings. And there's little pieces of us that we've lost that came from our ancestors, right? And that's where I have nopales, like the cacti, and the little tunas, which I guess, I don't know, they're called prickly pears in English or something. So I did a little bloom, and we're embracing everything, man. I'm not gonna negate a piece of me that I know is there that I'm gonna embrace. So I molded it. So I created this little halo made out of cactus. I've never seen that shit, so I made it. So I just like, sometimes I want to see stuff and I'll be like, does this exist? Nah. All right, let's make it. So that was it. And so just to see Desiree how happy she was, right? We're sitting there like crying and we're like, I know this is some powerful shit. And I was like, I know. And so sometimes I get so zoned in on just creating a piece that it's important to make time and be like, holy shit, I did that. Like, how did I do that? They're like, how did you do that? I'd be like, I don't know. But I did it, And so it's really, and it's so cool to see how my style's been like evolving with even from that piece. I created that piece, I think like February last year. It's been a minute. And she's very popular.
Using your imagination to create those works of art with unlimited stories calls for inspiration from artists and the viewer enjoying. It is that very idea that attracted me to this interview, the power of human connection.
I gotta stay true to what I love and what I love to create. And so long that I get this creative freedom to emanate my style and like what I believe in, my what can we say, my movement. Yeah, this one's, I'm falling in love with this one every day. I really like this one. And me and her, we're able, as with the clients, you're able to connect with the deeper meanings in the stories.
Yeah.
And so it really does, like, it makes you want to paint. Whenever you connect with someone and their story, it's like when you meet an artist out, right? When they talk to you a little bit about their piece, you might have really liked that piece, but after you hear the story, you just fall in love. And so I think that's where that human connection comes from. I'll never stop being around my community because it really does influence my artwork. Just the connection is so important to me.
All right. So I had to ask, would you ever consider painting men?
The only man I painted, nah, Tupac for sure. That's one of my pieces. He's the one that kind of started this movement, believe it or not. That's the ironic thing.
When the world comes across truly powerful people, we've seen, on many occasions, society tries to either destroy them or support them. For me, growing up in Sacramento, I idolized Tupac. His words eliminated the fear from my heart. I found courage through not only him as a musician, but as an activist, a true poet in the streets. I can clearly see how she and I were both roses grown from the concrete. And the racial equality he fought for then is still needed now. Forever, he lives as a symbol for many.
We had I was at an old job. We had a race training, and they talked about, the discrepancies in careers and the demographic that tends to get promoted and the demographic that tends to work with the population we help, right?
Yeah.
I just sat there in the room and I looked around and I was like, hold on, and I was like, holy shit. Like, as much, people talk about race and racism and all that, sometimes we get so caught up existing and working and we don't really stop to think, like, what is it that we're, like, are my morals here? Are my values here? Like, am I representing who I really am? Like, this ain't fucking cool, right? And so I remember going home and my cousin had asked me about Tupac and I was like, hey, I'm painting that Tupac piece. Bet, let's go. And I remember just going in, just playing Tupac on just freaking repeat and throwing him on my wall right here and just going in. And I just remember a lot of the things that Tupac talks about, it still resonates today. You know?
Fuck yeah, it does.
Yeah, Tupac for sure is a sociologist. And I think, and I used to teach that to my young people I used to work with, like my formerly incarcerated youth, or my youth that are quote unquote at risk.
Yeah.
But basically, my young people that need that extra love. And it's just really like the way music hits. I fucking love hip hop. I love hip hop so much. And the way music hits, the shit it brings out of you, it gets a lot of us through some tough times, And when I was sitting there, I felt every time I like laid down a paint stroke, I started washing away pieces of me that I had tried to accommodate to make others comfortable. And I was like, fuck that, dude. Like, never again. Like, I'm not here to make people comfortable. I'm here to make me happy and everyone around me,
Yeah.
And so after that, that's when I got real curious about my culture. I've always loved Frida Kahlo, and I'd be like, all right, why do you love Frida Kahlo? What resonates with you? And I just love that she just pushed boundaries, even gender norms. Like, I like the fact that she was going through so much and loved so hard, but she just still stayed true to herself. And so Tupac brought that out of me. Frida gave me the paper. And then once I started connecting with my homegirls, that's where the paintbrush came in. And it was just like, it was just a process of like just an awakening for me. Almost 2 years ago.
That's cool.
And so I am not opposed to, don't quote me. I'm not opposed to painting men, but for now, I really do enjoy painting women.
Nice.
But maybe down the line, yeah. I look, I'm over here stuttering. Maybe.
I told her whenever she's ready, I'll fight to be her first commission.
I feel like we all evolve throughout life, right? We have different stages where I really do believe in the growth, the term growing pains.
Yeah.
My growing pains came like last year, September, October, and I noticed I hit a point in my life, whether it was someone close to me, whether it was my employer, whether it was whoever, right? They were asking things of me, and I just reached a point where I just didn't want to give that of me because it just wasn't completely authentic. Mm-hmm. I felt like there was something where it's like, Arely, I want this from you, or you need to do this, and I found myself being like, but I don't want to, And I think sometimes, we search for love, acceptance in the wrong places, and it's like, how about it's time, like I'm a Cancer, right? I'm a lover, I'm a giver.
Yeah.
How about I take that time that I've invested in others, giving so much love, so much care, so much nurturing, I never took the time to give that back to myself. That was my growing pain last year. It was fucking hard, It wasn't always as bright as like my paintings. That shit fucking sucked. However, those are those moments. You think I'll ever forget that? Hell no. That was like my 30s. I'm like, my 30s are for growing. And that was that moment of like, I know what this is. No matter how much, it'd be beautiful to, love others and put into others. I'm ready to it's me right now. And I'm ready, and I don't care. I'm selfish. I'll be selfish. Because ultimately, if I wish I would have done it sooner, Mm-hmm. What would have happened if I would have done this 5 years sooner instead of focusing on always trying to accommodate and help and love people? I'll still be nurturing and loving, but I will forever put myself first. And that's why I said, aside with putting me first, we're gonna lift as we climb. So whoever's still holding me down and respecting my journey, I got you. Like when we're ready and when we're on, like I got you, you know?
Opening your art completely to people, how it changes you, fear, compromises, learning as an artist, the importance of sharing and healing.
It's a whole different energy.
Yeah.
And what honestly helped me come out of like that shell was vending. I used to, fun fact, I used to hate people watching me paint. And then all of a sudden you go from like, I was so concerned about people's opinion. Then when you don't care no more, when you're just like in love with the people you're meeting and you're just like all in it, like my fears were what was holding me back. My compromises.
Yeah.
And it's like, for what? Like who wants to be in any type of situation in any institution compromising their true self? And so it's like, and sometimes, you know, I have respect. Everyone has their journey. And sometimes people are in situations that aren't ideal. But I do feel like everyone comes into their own when they need to. And I just feel blessed when things go wrong, they go real bad. But you know there's about to be an abundance of blessings. And my blessing so far was for me to start loving myself again and start doing shit for me. You know? This is getting real deep, ain't it?
Near the end of our conversation, I felt I was no longer just an interviewer and that we connected on a true level to become friends. We spun time back a little and she told me a story she would never forget. Something very dear to her and something I am honored to share through this platform.
So, all right. So I guess the story, my early, so I'm gonna share with you a story. I haven't told a lot of people, but my mom knows the story. But it's kind of like my first introduction to, I guess we could say, wanting to explore art. So when from age birth to like 7, my family lived on the east side of San Jose, right behind JW Fair Middle School. Literally lived in the corner house. And then I think our street was called Joe DiMaggio. And my mom, back then it wasn't safe at all. I remember we didn't really have cops in our neighborhood. Like gangs were just off the hook. People used to go to the school right there, fight, have shootouts. Like it was just crazy, you know. But my mom, for the most part, when we could go out, she would go walk on the track and she would have me and my brother walk, or he would kick around a soccer ball. There was always people out there, right? And I remember running through the field and finding, I want to say it was like a little piece of plywood that was maybe 7 by 10 inches. And it's a picture of these 2 little kids like picnicking, swimming in a swimming pool. And then there's like an apple tree, and then on the apple tree it says like Mike and Chelsea, something like that. And I just remember I thought it was so cool. I think the reason it stood out to me was because I saw it so beautiful and it didn't make sense to me why anyone would throw it away. And then right behind it was like a little broken mirror. And I remember I ran to my mom and was so excited and be like, look, Mom, like I found something. And my mom's like, no, like I don't want to collect any junk. And she grabbed it and she kind of flinged it. She's like, let's go home. And I was crying. I had to be like 3 or 4, man. I was little. And my grandma, during this time, she was visiting from Mexico. And I remember my grandma asked me what was wrong. And I was just crying, sobbing, mocos y todo, you know. and I was just like, Mom won't let me keep something I found. And so grandma looked at it and she's like, oh, this is actually cute. And so my grandma grabbed it. I remember she was wearing a sweatshirt. I don't know how I remember this because I was like a toddler. And she hid it under her sweatshirt. She's like, let's go home. And when we got home, to be fair to my mom, I don't think she really paid attention because I think all she saw was like the broken glass and, you know, it was like a piece of wood.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, oh, mija, like this is actually very like endearing. Like this is adorable. And she let me keep it. And she actually mounted it in my room. So here we are, like maybe over 25 years later, even we moved to the south side of San Jose and it's still sitting mounted on my wall in my room. And there was just something, it hit different because that's where I just knew, like I always wanted to do the art thing. You know, my mom tells me, she's like, I regret not taking you more seriously. I was like, you didn't know any better. I was like, and a lot of children say they want to do stuff and they leave it.
Yeah.
I was like, but now we know. And I think that's something, you know, when I become a parent, if my kid ever tells me they want to try something, I'm going to take them for it. And if they want to leave it, that's totally cool. Because you never know some amazing things that these children are so amazing. And we just gotta like feed into their imagination. You never know like what impact we're actually making, you know?
Right.
So that was the first time I ever got exposed to like a hand painted thing, and I still have it. And hopefully everybody gets to see it too, you know?
I leave this last moment to express my gratitude for meeting another first-generation American and learning and trying to understand her life and the wisdom earned along the way. It is truly critical that we creatives interact with not only other creatives in your community, but those all around the globe. One day, I hope to look up and see a mural, and again, wonder what that story was, or gaze at that wall entranced by the story in my heart.
Best advice, don't ever let someone project their fears on you. And it's unfortunate, right? Because we kind of get conditioned that way. We talked about being first generation, and our parents, I feel privileged to be able to do this, right? Because when my parent was my age or even younger when I was exploring painting, they were just trying to survive.
Right.
And we have the privilege to be able to survive and explore. And so being able, you know, when we're younger, our parents projecting their fears on us, it was love. It was their form of love. But unfortunately, what happens is that we give everyone else around us the benefit of the doubt, and we take their quote unquote opinion, right? Because it's just that, it's their opinion. And unfortunately, even people that we love project their fears. And then now it's like, nah, fuck that. Like, that's your fear, but that's why you live your life. Let me live mine how I need to.
Exactly.
And let me, if I'm gonna fail, cool. If I land on my ass, I got 2 good feet right now. Let me get back up. Like, are you gonna lift? Like, stay here if you're gonna lift me up when I fall. And if not, get out. And that's why I think friends become family. It's that, right? Friends are family. We create what we want around us.
Right.
Our tribe.